Welcome back to class. The season is almost over, and that means this class is coming to an end, or, our class is coming to final exams. It does not mean that you should not sign up for League 102, because I'm not going to be ending this, because I don't want to. I still want to do this. I want to do this as much as we can. But let us talk about some more concepts to not cry and lose more games of this godforsaken trash-ass game. Thank you to They Call Me Aimer for our class suggestion today to talk more about matchups. So if you have any suggestions for the class, if you want to learn something that we haven't talked about yet, put them in the comments and I will be sure to get to them if I think it's an interesting topic or if we have not done it yet. But anyways, today's class is about matchups, and matchups is the dynamic between two champions and all the different outcomes that are possible with it. Matchups are the most important in the top lane, so we will cover more about that lane, but every lane needs to know about the dynamics between each other. I've said many times before that explaining every matchup with every champion would take absolutely forever, and honestly is not possible to explain because I am not even that smart to teach you about every single possible matchup for every single champion. That's just, you're gonna have to learn some matchups yourself. But we can always get a head start into learning about how to get better at matchups by creating a sort of checklist of what we want to know when we go into a matchup. So some of the things that we have already talked about, like during our class about collecting information and making decisions, we already talked about some of those things in that class. If you want to understand League better, I highly recommend watching that video. It is one of the easiest and most crucial tips that everyone should know about. One last piece of knowledge I want to share before we actually get into the tips though, is that sadly, you are going to have good and bad matchups. Like, that's just how the game works. You're gonna have good and bad matchups. Some champions are just stronger against certain champions. Go to websites like op.gg or u.gg to see what those champions are. Another quick tip into learning how to play against a matchup is to watch challenger or one-trick footage of those games and see what kind of things they do in order to make their lives less miserable or win. Our first item on our checklist that we would like to know is, what is the identity of the champion? This is a question that you should ask for yourself, for the champion that you have, and also for the enemy. So the first item on our checklist is kind of the starter of a bunch of other questions we are going to need to ask ourselves. This is like very broad. It's very fucking broad, but it is basically very crucial to understand how we want to play. Let's just look into a champion on how you kind of want to see this. So Darius, he's a champion that many people struggle with because of his identity. He is a juggernaut that usually likes to stat check you and win almost every prolonged fight he gets into. He doesn't have a lot of range and doesn't have a lot of movement options to help him get on top of somebody, but he has the ability to stick to people once he gets there. What is our first sub question? What does the passive and the abilities do on that champion? I feel like everyone knows this is obviously the first step for anyone to help in a matchup. You really need to know what their passive and abilities do to win, and not even the short answers of, oh, Darius E pulls me in. That's not what you want. You want more. You want more information about that. Abilities have a lot more to them if you actually go and read them. You are going to have to study up a little bit on those champions if you really want to be good at those matchups. So for Darius, the more intricate details you should look into is that his passive not only stacks bleed to anyone that he damages with abilities or autos, but if he hits max stacks, which is 5, he will get bonus AD and give max stacks to anyone he autos going forward, no matter how many stacks they already have. The big one is the bonus AD he gets. This makes him so much more powerful as a champion, and we will talk about how we want to deal with that a little bit later. His Q will only heal him if he hits us with the outer ring, and will also only give us a passive stack as well. His W has a degrees cooldown when he kills something with it and refunds the mana cost, making this ability an amazing CS tool. His E pulls you in, but also gives Darius bonus armor penetration for each level he puts it into it. And his R does more damage the more passive stacks you have. If it's at max stack, it will do true damage, and if he kills someone with it, it will reset. If it kills the target, basically it'll reset and he's able to do it again. Basically, this kind of just helped us kind of see the identity of Darius even more. So we kind of have his identity a little bit more because of what we just saw through his abilities. Darius is a champion that likes to have long fights and uses those free stats he gets from his abilities to basically make him win any prolonged fight he gets into. His combos are super simple of pulling you in, slowing you with his W to help him almost a guaranteed Q outer ring heal, and continue to run you down until you die. So this is where we can move on to our next sub question. What kind of trading pattern do they have? We have talked about trading before, which is you and your opponent trading HP in lane. But trading has a bunch of different forms for champions. Long distance short trades, short distance short trades, long distance long trades, and short distance long trades. Every single champion falls into one of these trading patterns because of the kit that they have. For Darius, if you have been listening at all, Darius is a short distance long trader. He loves long trades because he knows if he gets his bonus AD bonus, like the AD bonus from his passive, all the bonus stats makes him almost impossible to lose. But this also means he is weaker in the other categories, making it more beneficial to trade in a way where we do short trades. Some champions like long trades, some champions like short trades. Figuring out what their trading pattern that they like is very, very crucial into kind of understanding what you want to do in the matchup. Basically, it means that he is weaker in other categories, making it more beneficial for you to play in a different trading pattern than him, or if you're a champion is better than him in long trades, then you can still do it. So like something like Trundle might be better at him with long trades because he has the ability to steal AD from the opponent with his Q. So like some champions might be better, but it will still feel more iffy in those situations. There's also one crucial question we should ask ourselves before we even go for a trade. So like just going for a trade, just like knowing, oh, he's a short distance long trade, let me just go for a short distance short trade. That's not how that works. We already talked about this a little bit before, but what is the most dangerous ability that the champion has? Every single champion in this game has an ability that makes them win almost every single fight that they get into or allows them to do what they want. So Darius does need to hit his E in order to basically start a trade. If he doesn't hit an E, a trade will probably never start. This is his combo starter and allows him to close that distance he can't close in himself because he has no dashes. Darius does want his E. He does want to hit you with his E. That is very much his dangerous ability, but that does not mean that his other abilities are not dangerous, and we should also take those abilities into consideration whenever we want to go in, and also take consideration of our own abilities in order to counter those abilities that he has. So like waiting for Darius to use his E and he misses, but also he just uses W on a minion, so he can't slow you, meaning his easy Q heal won't happen. So like his whole kind of kit just kind of falls apart. So we have been talking a lot about champions because, you know, that is kind of what matchups are, but sadly the game is a lot more complicated than that. For a lane, we really need to know about the wave and how it can change up how the matchup feels. So the next two questions are, how does the wave make our lives easier or harder, and can I build different items to make the game easier? But before we move on to those questions, these videos and streams take a long time to make, and I would love it if you can help me hit my goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I am only 60, I'm only 59 now, but I'm 60 subscribers away. I would heavily appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to do that so I can finally start making income off of YouTube. Not only is it completely free to do this, in the future I can use that income to make these videos and streams even better for your enjoyment and release them more often. As always though, thanks for watching up to this point, and let's move on with the lesson. First order of business is basically level advantages. We've talked about level advantages a lot, so I'm not going to go into detail about them because we have explained them. But basically, every laning phase, we will have a point where we hit level 2, 3, and 6, and knowing where those power spikes are for yourself and the opponent is crucial to not lose some battles. And here are those minion counts that you should keep track of, and you should use these advantages and disadvantages wisely. And if you want to know level 6 happens, it's around 5 minutes for solo laners, and then level 6 for bot laners, it's around almost double. It's like, it could be up to a range to 8 to 10 minutes. You just need to keep track of your own XP, see how much kills they have, see how much XP that you lost or they lost, but it's usually around 8 to 10 minutes for them. So the next question we want to ask ourselves is, how can our wave help us or hurt us in our matchups? We talked about this in our wave management guide video already, but for a short little answer, Recognize how these wave states can make your life easier and or not, and how not to be caught into taking bad positioning because of the waves. One quick tip that can make our lives easier is asking the question on how do I want to play the laning phase. The matchup can kind of determine this, and sometimes a free laning phase of just CSing is better for you than a laning phase of trying to kill the opponent. Champs like Kale, Asol, and many other late game carries are like that and want to win their games that way. But also, it can be such a bad matchup that they will be your father, and you will just have to try your best to survive your father's drunken rage. This will happen. Let's talk about itemizations. We all know that op.gg and u.gg give us the highest win rate builds for basically anything, but that does not mean that that build is the best for every game. You should see it as the most consistently winning build rather than the best build for every game. Since there are so many items in the game, how do we know what the best options are? Obviously, I can't tell you for every single option for every single champion. We're not going to do that. The best thing you can really do is just read up on the items and try to get a feel on how they can interact with your champion. And if the interaction is basically good. Let's take Camille for example. This is Camille's u.gg build. Trinity, you got Steel Caps, we got Ravenous Hydra, Shojin, Sterix, and then we got Chemtech Chainsaw down here. If you couldn't tell, this build has literally zero magic resist. There is zero magic resist in this build, except like extra survivability with Steric Gauge and also Death Stance. Like that's where you get to survive your survivability from. Maybe you want to swap Sterix for Ma, or maybe swap Boots for your Merc Treads, or maybe you would rather have more healing for Sundered Sky, or maybe you want more damage but also survivability with Eclipse. There are a bunch of items that you can still use with Camille. Using these different items can not only fit the playstyle you like, but also can help you win more matchups and games in the future. So experiment, figure out what you like, and use your knowledge of items to your advantage. And that's kind of it. That is kind of all I have for class. That is basically everything that I kind of want to talk about. So now that class is over, does anyone have a VOD review that they would like to share for the class? So we can go over what kind of problems you might have had in a game, or if you want to have any macro, or you have any macro or micro questions of League that you